What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down Tom Brady and his throwing mechanics. He has one of the most efficient motions in all of the NFL, and that's why he's able to throw for all these years in the NFL, 19 plus years. So we're going to break this thing down and see what makes his motion so great. And guys, please leave in the comments who you would like to see me break down next. Let's get started. So this first throw is going to be a touch pass. So the main thing about a touch pass, guys, is I want you to notice how his shoulders have this almost 45-degree angle trajectory and how well he pushes off of his back leg, how it kind of changes up with each throw, and we're going to break down a lot of different throws from him today. So he's going to be pushing up here. See how he's pushing off of this inside arch, but his shoulder angle changes, which makes this ball trajectory go up. That's how we throw with touch, guys. We don't want to stay flat and then try to leave our follow-through up here while our shoulders stay flat. We got to rotate up and over the throw like Brady does right here. So I'm going to break down, show this thing slow motion. See how he's rotating up and over. That's how we get touch on this ball. Now, the main thing I want you to see is a lot of guys, when they have touch, they take this front leg and they extend it out super wide, or they extend this front leg. They step either far or they extend that front leg. They strike the ground heel toe. But Brady does a good job on keeping a slight bend in this front leg. Even when he's throwing a touch pass, even when he's throwing an easy pass, he knows if he extends, he's going to lose all the force produced from this back leg. So we got to be able to drive off of this back leg, this inside arch, keep a slight bend in this front knee, and have our shoulders going back as we're pushing. So when you push off the back leg, your shoulders go back. They call it hip and shoulder disassociation. So your hips are coming forward while your shoulders going back, and you're taking this ball back in this almost opposite L angle. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is his left arm, how tight he keeps that left arm to his body. All elite NFL quarterbacks, you break them all down. I challenge you to find me one that's an elite passer that doesn't finish with his hands somewhere in front of his face. They all do it because that's how they create torque, and that's how they get accuracy, and that's how they're efficient, because if they swing that left arm around, I had a coach tell me the other day, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. The quarterback should swing his left arm around. And I just told him, watch Brady throw. Greatest of all time. Look where he keeps his elbow. That's where you need to keep your front arm, okay? You watch him, you watch Breeze, you watch Rodgers. That's where they keep that front arm. So that's what we should keep it too. So now we're going to talk about his hip drive. When he brings this ball back, he pivots off of this back foot, almost like a baseball player. He's pivoting, he's squishing that back bug. Now what that does is that brings his back hip to the middle of his body. So you see the middle of his body right here. Now where does that back hip come through? Comes exactly to where the middle of his body was. That's what we have to do. Now, the ball is trailing that hip. We call it chasing the hip. His back hip's coming through, the ball is chasing the hip. That's how you create torque. That's how you get a lot more velocity on the throw, and that's how you have more control on the throw. So now I want to talk about the release. He releases this thing. This is a perfect angle too, by the way. That's when you want to get to 90. You don't lift this ball straight to this 90-degree angle, because then you're going to have a nice little coil in your motion. You get to this opposite L right here like Brady does, and then your core and your hip drive brings you up to this 90-degree angle. That's what coaches are talking about when they say get to 90, quote unquote. You want to get to that opposite L first. Now, when he releases this ball, I want you to see, anytime we're throwing touch passes, guys, it's like we're throwing free throws, okay? Shooting free throws. You want to leave that wrist flick up, and you want to extend this arm. That's what we got to do. We always got to extend the arm. I see a lot of guys have this arm bent when they release it, and that's why they don't get as clean of a spiral, and that's why they're not as consistent. We got to extend at the top, and you got to turn that, you got to make sure your thumb is parallel to the ground. You want to turn that hand over. That's how you get a spiral, guys. I talk a lot about this. I've had this question asked a lot. How do quarterbacks, what do their hand do? You let the ball roll off of your index finger, and then you turn your palm over with your thumb parallel to the ground. That's how you release it. That's how you get a clean spiral on the ball. And I want you to see how well he rotates with that back shoulder on the target. Nice balanced position. Still keeps that slight bend in that front leg, and his toes are clearly in the ground. That's how you throw a touch. Okay, so now he's going to be throwing, he's going to change up this arm angle. It's going to be a little bit of a sidearm throw, okay? So the main thing I want you to see is how when he rotates this arm, the only thing that changes is his arm angle. It's the same mechanics, and his shoulders now are level, all right? So let's watch this thing in slow-mo. So again, short front stride. He starts out with a wide base. You want to start with your feet just outside of your shoulders. That's how you cut down a stride. If you see a quarterback who has a long stride, tell them to widen their base, because that front leg is forced to get into the ground, okay? And when that front leg can get into the ground, that makes your release quicker, and that gives you more pop from this back leg. So he drives out this back leg, gets that front foot in the ground. Again, slight bend, and look where he's pushing off of. He's pushing off the inside arch. You can tell by his shin angle almost on this 45-degree angle. So what is it? Front foot's in the ground. Shoulders are going back. We talk about this hip and shoulder disassociation. When your front foot gets in the ground, you want to be working your hands. I see too many guys with this ball already in this L, and their front foot's just hitting the ground. That's wrong. That's how you get kind of a kickback motion, and it's not as efficient. We're not as consistent. So, again, pivoting off this back foot before the ball gets to the 90-degree angle. That's what takes it up to that 90-degree. You see, the arm just supports it. If you bring this back hip through, your arm is forced to get to this 90-degree angle. So you go to that opposite L, you pivot off this back foot, you bring that hip to the middle of your body, your hip to your belly button, and you chase the hip, guys. You see his hip is coming through before the ball, and he changes up that arm angle. He's throwing this thing a little bit sidearm, Patrick Mahomes style. But again, what's the one thing that remains consistent on this finish? Extending with this arm, and he turns his palm out, okay? Makes that thumb parallel, lets it roll off his index fingers. Index finger is the last thing. It's the last connection from the ball to the brain. So that's our spiral finger, guys. And he turns that palm over, gets that thumb parallel to the ground, extends out, and that's what gives him such a tight spiral. That's what gives him a clean ball. And again, guys, I want to watch this left arm. Stays in front of his face. Does he swing this left arm around for power? Absolutely not. Your back hip is where your power comes from, your back hip and your legs. We call it ground force and rotational force. If you push, keep a slight bend in this front leg, that's your ground force. Now, all you got to do is drive this hip through, pivot off that back foot, or just, I'm not necessarily too picky about the pivot. That's just what Brady does. You pivot to get the rotational force, and you keep this left arm tight to create torque, because if you swing that left arm, your chest is open. You're spreading your chest, and that's bad mechanics, guys. That's how we lose power. That's how we're not as consistent, and that's how the ball goes into the ground when we lose rotational force. We got to have ground force and rotational force. Then he's extending. Opposite arm is in front of his face. To everybody who says we need to swing the opposite elbow down, that's wrong. If your quarterback coach tells that, in one ear, out the other ear, because that's not right. The best guys don't do that. We want to train like the best guys. Extends the ball and then finishes with the right shoulder on the target. That's what I'm talking about with a finish, guys. So now we're going to break down this next throw. Now, again, this is like a deeper ball throw, okay? So the one before was like touch. This is like he's throwing there's three kind of balls. There's a one ball, which is like the one we just broke down where it's on a line. There's a two ball where you're like throwing a corner against man coverage, and then there's a three ball where you're throwing a go and letting our guy go chase it down. This is like a go ball. So nice strong base, right? In the pocket, we want to have a slight bend of these legs, vertical posture from our hips up. That's what we need, guys. And keeping slight bend in, he's going to be pushing off this inside arch. And again, I want you to see, he keeps a slight bend in that front leg. And he's already pivoting off this back foot. The second he drives, his hands come back. So that's where the throw starts. The throw starts from that back foot. Right when you drive, your shoulders go back. Hip and shoulder disassociation. It's too complicated of a term. So right when your hips go forward, your shoulders go back, okay? So has this ball in this nice L carriage, and that hip's coming through. That brings him to that 90-degree L right there, keeping a slight bend in his legs to make sure we keep that ground force produced. Left arm is somewhere in front of his face, and he's rotating up and over this throw. That's how we throw with touch, guys. And he's got this ball. The ball's trailing his hip here, and he's going to flick his wrist up at the top again, turning that palm out, getting that thumb parallel to the ground, and rotating nice and easy through. That's a perfect deep ball mechanics, guys. You get that back shoulder rotated all the way through to ensure that you're accurate. It's the mistake I see a lot of guys make is they get to right here, and then they just drop this arm. They don't rotate all the way through. We want to rotate all the way through with this arm and put that opposite arm on the other side of our body to make sure we rotate. You want to start with your front shoulder. So if I'm a righty, I want to start, let's rewind it. I want to start with my left shoulder on the target, and then I want to finish with my right shoulder on the target. Okay, then vice versa if you're a lefty. You want to start with the right shoulder on the target, then finish with your left, finish with that throwing arm. Okay, so now he's just going to be making a normal throw. This is like just a one ball like we were talking about here. So coming across right now, pushing off this front leg. Look how short of a stride that is, guys. That's the stride all quarterbacks need. The long stride, all it does is it brings this ball back further. It takes it longer to get out of your hands. That's when a lot of guys will miss high and they don't have as much power on the ball. Short stride gets your hips active, makes the ball go faster. You'll get a quicker release and you'll get more pop on the ball if you have a shorter stride, but you keep a bent front leg. And how you get that is a wide base. I cannot stress that enough. So you see his foot. Shin angle's at a 45-degree angle. We know he's pushing right here. We know he's pushing. What happens when we push? We take the ball back. Our hip brings this ball to that 90-degree angle, as we can see right here. Where's that left arm? In front of his face. He's not swinging that elbow down, and he's driving through with this hip. Again, pivoting off this back foot. Ball is chasing his hip, right? The ball is trailing behind our hip. That's how we create torque. Left arm tight to make sure that we create torque. Another thing I want to show you guys is from when he's carrying the ball. he's not really tense up here. I see a lot of quarterbacks make this mistake. They hold this ball by their ear, and they're real tense, and their traps are flexed. That's how we don't have a lot of force on the ball, because your body can only produce so much force, and that force should be in the ground and be in your hips, not in your traps, okay? He's very relaxed. Ball in his right pec. You can have it in the right pec, center of your body, just not on that front pec. Nice and relaxed carriage, which allows the ball to rotate through. We should have no stress on our upper half, guys. Okay, so now we're going to watch the throw. I want you to see how much pop this throw has. We're going to watch it full speed, then we'll break it down. So he's dropping back here. This is him training in the off season. And you see how much energy that ball finishes with. So we're going to talk about it here. This is a good angle from this throw. I want you to watch his front leg. So, again, he's pushing off this back leg. We can really see this here. Pushing here. His stride's a little bit longer because it's a deeper throw than the last clip we were looking. But look, hips are coming forward, shoulders are going back. We can really see the torque. Now, the main thing I want you to see is his front leg is stepping just inside of the target that he's trying to throw to. Reason being is that gives him more torque from this back hip. If we open up that front hip, our hips turn square and we don't have any power. You're not as in an explosive position. You could try when you get done watching this video. Open up your front foot all the way with like your toes directly at the target, and then close it off just a little bit. You have more torque from that back hip when you try to rotate through, guys. So, main thing I want you to see here is he's pivoting off this back foot just to the inside. Look where his hip is. Hip's to the middle of his body. Ball is trailing. Ball's behind his hip. That's where we need to be. We have torque. He keeps a slight bend in this front leg. I cannot stress that enough. Now, you might think he's stepping behind him. The ball's going to go there. Not if he rotates through the throw like Brady is so good at doing. So he rotates all the way through this throw, right? Foot still stepping just inside of him, but he finishes with his back shoulder on the target, and look at his extension. His extension is right at the target. It's like we're throwing darts, guys. Our finish on the follow-through is like we're throwing darts at a dartboard. Throwing darts at a dartboard, finish all the way through with that off shoulder. Oh, and look at that left arm. He's not swinging this elbow down like I hear a lot of people say, which is completely wrong. He keeps that hand in front of his face, nice and tight, rotates through the throw, and you see where this thing finishes. It's not behind him, so that solves the myth of cutting off the target with your front leg. I'm not complaining too much about quarterbacks doing that because I believe it's kind of a preference thing when it comes to that, but you're going to have more torque if you step just inside of the target, but you got to make sure you rotate all the way through, and you see how much force this ball finishes with. Let's watch this thing full speed one more time. So coming out here, drive it, rotate through, just right up the middle. It's a great throw. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit of a front angle here. The main thing I want you to see is his hips and his shoulders. That's what I want you to see, and look at this ball. Nice and relaxed. You see that? He's very relaxed. He's just calm. He's relaxed back there. Your legs is what creates the force. Your legs are in a slight bend. They're in a powered position. But your arm and your upper half, we are very relaxed. We have a relaxed carriage. Our head does not move. That's another thing I want to talk about here, guys. Your head should not lean out of there, because what that does is that makes the ball go push outside of your frame. So don't lean. I want you to see how steady Brady keeps his head right here. So drive, shoulders going back, hips are coming forward, gets that front foot in the ground. It's all consistent. It's the same motion every time. The only thing we change up is our shoulder trajectory when we're trying to throw with some touch, and our follow through when we're trying to change up the arm angle. That's what I wanted to show you those clips first. So now, pivoting off that back foot, his hip is coming through. He's stepping just to the inside of the target. The reason being, you can really see it here. If he were to open up, this left hip would come way outside of his frame, and he would be square. And we're opening up our frame. We want to keep our frame almost front side closed right here. That's why he keeps this left arm in front of his face here. Left arm in front of his face so he can get torque. Hip is coming through. Ball is chasing his hip. We're chasing the hip with the ball. And look at his hand. I want you to see how well he extends with his front hand. Extends. Turning that palm out, getting that thumb parallel to the ground, letting the ball roll off his index finger, extending, guys, extension. That's what we need. Too many guys finish with their arm bent. We want to finish extended, just like this. That's how we want to finish. Back shoulder rotating through all the way on the target to make sure that we don't miss inside, because look at his lead leg. Stepping inside, but he rotates all the way through. That's where we have to be. We create torque like that. We're going to be consistent like that, and we're going to have a lot of pop on the ball when we do that. Let's watch this thing full speed one more time. And again, notice how still he keeps his head. He's not leaning out of the throw. He's staring right down an alley. So here, nice and relaxed, then rotate all the way through. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. Again, please leave in the comments who you would like to see me break down next, guys. And if you have any questions, please put those in the comments as well. I'll see you guys next time.